Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your tangled yogi out here in Northern California. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the Ancient Garden Zentangle Class. I'm going to be teaching this class for the San Rafael Library tomorrow, and I thought I would record it so that all of you could try it too. So let's talk about the things that we're going to need for class today. I'm going to be working with a micron PN pen, but you can work with your favorite Tangle pen, a graphite pencil. A number 2 pencil will do just fine. I will be working with a thicker nibbed pen. This is going to be for puddling and adding all of that black that we have in here. If you don't have a really good thick nibbed pen, you can always get away with using a Sharpie. We're going to be doing a lot of blending in this class, so I will be working with the white Prisma pencil. This is PC938. And then we will be doing some highlighting at the very end. You can see that I've got my Signo Uniball white pen, but you can use your white Sakura Jelly Roll, or you can use the Mizu Love pen, which is really, really nice as well. You know me, I'm a Prismacolor girl, so I'll be working with the Prismacolor pencils. If you have a good color pencil set, go ahead and grab it. And if you don't, well then use what you got, because that's what the name of the game is. And then finally, I'm going to be working on the Genesis tile. These are in the Tangled Yogi shop. You can go to tangledyogi.com and check these out. This is a really nice, super smooth paper, and it really receives color pencil quite well. I work really hard to make sure that we have really good tiles in the Tangled Yogi shop so that you have the best result possible. With that said, let's get started with the ancient garden. Okay, so let's get started here. We are going to start with a really fun way to create this composition today. Normally I talk about a string and we divide the piece into a couple of different shapes, but today our tangle is going to be our string. And this first tangle is called Page Curl, and it's by Lizzie Main. And what it looks like is I'm going to come down from the top of my border. I'm going to say about an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter, and I'm going to create a printemps that goes like this. So it's just super, super easy. And then I'm going to come away from this area down here at the bottom, and I'm going to come out about an inch and a quarter, and I'm going to do another printemps, and you can see that they're facing each other. So it's just two really simple printemps there. Okay? Now to build off of this, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this upper one right here. I'm going to go ahead and give that printemps a little bit of a hat. And you're going to see that the hat is going to come up, it's going to touch the corner or the edge there, and it's going to come right back down again. So it kind of looks like a dunce cap. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the end of my printemps here, and I'm going to just let it extend into where the hat is. We're going to do the same thing down here. So this one's also going to get a hat that's going to touch the corner. And then I'm going to go inside to where the curl is, and I'm just going to take it straight in. So you can already see that when I zoom out, look at how fun that is. We've already got the beginnings of our tangle here. So if you need to finish up yours, go ahead and finish this part up, and then when we come back, we're going to add in our border. So once I have that piece or that component to this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to create columns that are coming down, and you'll see what I mean by this in a minute. So I'm going to start by just creating these. I would say they're probably an inch wide, and you're just going to see me let it draw all the way down. I'm going to come in over here and just do the same thing. So I'm just going ahead and coming in, turning my tile. I'm looking for about an inch here on each side. And then one more for good luck, right? And you'll notice when I come in, that's given me this really nice square that I have right here in the center. And that's really what I was shooting for, was the square. So go ahead and finish yours up. I'm going to finish up mine. And then when we come back, we're going to do a little bit of overdrawing, and then we're going to start tangling some more. Okay, so I've picked up my pen. I have my Micron PN pen here, but you can use whatever pen you like to tangle with. And I'm just going to start by inking in the square. And you'll notice that there's a little bit of overlap here on the corner of the square. And if you have overlap on yours, that's really good. My first one, I had a lot of overlap, and on this one I have a little less. So it always changes, it's always different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm just going to go ahead and ink in my square. You can see I'm taking my time with my lines here, turning my tile as I work. And then I'm going to go back to our original tangle here. Remember page curl? So let's go ahead and zoom in on page curl here. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to start my printemps all over again. So just the same way that I started. So there's the printemps that I started with, right? And then I'm going to take that and let it go straight back. I'm going to come in and give him his little hat. So there's the first page curl, and now I'll do the one at the bottom. So you can see that I'm going to do my printemps here. So there's the printemps, and then I'm going to go straight back. I'll give him his hat. Just like so, so that when I scroll out, look at how fun that is. Really, really nice. It's got one curl up here and one curl down here. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start in the center with Nyu. Okay, so we are going to start by creating a tangle in the center, but I want you to grab a scratch piece of paper to learn this tangle because it's really fun and it can look a little tricky, but it's not that tricky if you pay attention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a square so that we have our workspace. And the name of this tangle is called Nyu, and it's created by one of my favorite tanglers. Her name is Emiko Kaneko, and she's out of Japan, and she's wonderful. I just love her tangles. They're just beautiful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide the space. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide the space again. Now once I have that, let's go ahead and zoom in on this so we get really, really close. So I'm going to come about to the halfway point and just a little bit below, and I'm going to do a teardrop shape. You can see I'm working with my pencil here. I'm going to turn my tile. And one more time. So now we've got the foundation for Nyu. Now here's where the trick comes in. So I'm going to come in right off of this line and I'm going to draw it, and then watch, I'm going to stop about 1 centimeter before I hit this beautiful little teardrop over here. I'm going to come up and over, and I'm going to stop once again. So you can see all it is it's an aura around the teardrop. Super, super easy. Now I'm going to turn my page counterclockwise. I'm going to come to this teardrop right here, and I'm going to go ahead and extend the line here, and you'll notice that this line is going to line up with this line right here. Now when I come around, this line is going to come all the way around and it lines up with this one. Does that make sense? Pretty easy, right? So I'm going to go ahead and turn counterclockwise again. I'm going to let this come in. Remember, we're going to the top shelf first, the top line first. Coming around and connecting to the second line. See how that connects there? Super fun, super easy. Coming in, this one's going to go to the top. Coming around. And there you have it. There is Nyu in its beginning stages. So let's go ahead and put Nyu in ours. So here we are. I've got my scrolls ready to go here, and I'm just going to go ahead and divide the space. You'll notice that I'm still working with my pencil here. And I also am pressing a little bit harder so you can see my lines, but you don't have to press that hard with your division lines. I'm going to come up a little less than halfway, and I'm going to make my teardrop. Notice that I'm leaving space above my teardrop so that I can do that aura. I'm going to go ahead and turn again, a little bit below halfway, turning, a little bit below halfway, turning, and a little bit below halfway. So there we have the beginning of it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start all over again just the way I just did. So if you want to hold on to your pencil for this, we can do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this line, I'm going to let it travel, 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 and then I stop right before I get close to that line. I'm going to come up and over, doing an aura, and stop. See how I have a little bit of space there? Now I'm going to turn my tile counterclockwise. This is going to swing down and come to the first line. See how this line and this line are connecting? And then I'm going to go ahead and swing over the top. And notice how this line and this line are connecting. Turning my tile, coming down over to the top line. So we're always shooting for that top line. And then I'm going to come in and connect with the bottom line. See how these two are connecting? Last time right here, swinging down. This line and this line are connecting. And there you have it. Now you can see that I still have a little bit of space in between. I'm just going to close that gap. And there you have it. There's the beginning of Nyu. So play with that for a minute, and then when you feel ready, we're going to come back in and we're going to start to do some overdrawing. So you know me, I always like to reteach myself the tangle as I'm overdrawing it. It just helps to give me a sense of a felt memory. So I'm going to go in just the way that I started and do my teardrops first. Once I have that, then I can begin. So I'm just going to take this line, let it come down and pause, and then I'm going to swing around and pause. Going counterclockwise here. I've got that first line, I'm going to bring it down. This time I can let it touch. And connect. See how those two are connecting? Turning and connecting. See how those two connect? Last one right here. Coming down, connect. This one's going to go up and over. Notice how I'm really taking my time with my lines here. Just like so. Isn't that so lovely? So hopefully yours came out pretty good, and it doesn't matter if it looks exactly like mine, and it doesn't matter if it's got a little wonkiness to it either. When they're kind of wonky, I think it's very interesting. So go ahead, overdraw on yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to add a little bit more to the tangle. Okay, so you can see that I've gone and erased my lines that were all throughout Nyu here. And you know me, I love a tangle that has tipple, and tipple is just a circle. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and put in some fairly large tipple, and they're going to touch right inside of this area right here. So it's just going to come in and touch. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Turning my tile. And one more for good luck. So you can see that that gives us a really nice element. And then right in the center of the piece, I'm going to put in a tipple. And I love the way that that feels. It's got a really nice kind of orbiness to it. Now we're going to build off of that by putting in some petals here. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to turn to this one since it's not impeded. And I'm going to come in right on the edges of my tipple here. And I'm going to go up, touch the edge, touch the other edge, and drop down. I'm going to go again and do one on this side and one on this side. Notice how the petals have touched on the edge on both sides. Now, inside of those little interstices that we have here, these kind of triangular-like shapes, I'm going to go in and I'm going to add some tipple into those areas. So let's go ahead and do that again. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to make two little dots. I'm going to come up and over, touch, touch, come down, jump off the side, come back in, jump off the side, come back in, tipple, tipple, and then I'm going to try to squeeze a little tipple in there. Turning my tile, two dots, jump off, up and over, jump off, and jump off, put a circle in, and then go to the last one right here. A dot, dot, jumping up, over, touch, come down, jump off the side, and jump off the side. Put in the tipple, and there you have Nyu, which is so pretty, such a gorgeous tangle. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and when we come back, we're going to add a little bit more detail to this. So once you have this, I'm going to go in towards the center here, and you see how I have my interstices here? I'm going to go and puddle into those interstices. Puddling just means I'm pooling ink in those areas. You can see that I'm going really nice and slow, taking my time. And then you can see how up in these corners I kind of have these little interstices that are around my tipple. I'm going to go in right in there and puddle in over there. You can see how that brings in such an interesting detail. I'm going to go all the way around and do just that, so you're going to see me go ahead and fill those in. And I'll turn one more time. You go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and when we come back, we're going to add some detailing into the petal. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of detailing in here, but we're going to use another tangle to do the detailing with. So we're going to do a tangle called Harari, and many of you have seen me do this tangle. It's become a mac and cheese tangle for me, or what we call in the tangle community a comfort tangle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to create something that looks a lot like what we have in that corner. Now, instead of doing just some regular lines like we would normally do in something like this, I'm actually going to use this as an opportunity to bring in another tangle. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to curl my edges. And I love this because it gives such interesting dimension. You can see that that really looks interesting, and once we start shading it, it really comes to life. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let that go, and I'm going to come back in with my pen here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the center and I'm going to drop down a little bit, and I'm just going to make these kind of little waves in my Nyu. And now it's becoming Nyu Harari, which sounds like the name of a very, eccentric writer, doesn't it? All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and let those curls come in. And I'm going to go all the way around and do just that. And I promise you, when we go ahead and do color on this, you're going to love this. It's so pretty when it gets shaded in. Super fun. So look at how beautiful that is, all on its own. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and when we come back, we're going to start to add a new element around our border. So I'm going to go ahead and start to build an element around the piece here. And I'm just going to go ahead and start by doing a really soft aura around that inner square. So I'm just taking my time and doing a really soft aura here, turning my tile. Remember, if you go nice and slow, your lines will really show it. If you go really fast, it'll show that you are rushing. So really take your time. And then once we have our nice aura in here, we're going to learn a tangle that is new to me. I'm actually doing a challenge right now called 2U Tangle 2022, and it's on Facebook, and it's been so wonderful. I'm going to write that on the back of this here. So it's called 2U Tangle 2022. And they every day ask you to try something new, and they have different prompts on the page, and you can go into the file that they have at the top of the page, and it will have this whole thing listed out, and it's run by a group of really wonderful tanglers in Japan, and I'm learning so much from them, and this piece would not have happened without them, so I'm very excited about it. So Boulder Builder is this really fun tangle. So I'm going to write this in. Boulder. Uh, let's try that again. Boulder Builder. And this tangle was created by Bunny Wright. And I'm just going to write this in here. Bunny Wright. And Boulder Builder is just a series of rectangles that are divided. So all it is, you can see that I've got this rectangle here. I'm going to go in and I'm going to divide it once. I'll divide it again, but then I could, do 3. And then maybe right in here, I might go and divide it again and then do this like that. And then what happens if I come in here like this, and then maybe like this, and then maybe like that. And then what's going to happen is, and this is what I love about this tangle, is it's so random, is that if you just go in and puddle your corners, it ends up looking like a rock wall or a boulder wall. So if you're, if you've ever been out in the countryside and you've seen those beautiful rock walls that people have, it really has such a lovely feel to it. So you can see all I'm doing is just curling off my corners and creating these really fun little boulders. And I think I'll go ahead and I'll go like this and go like that just to finish it off. And I'll come down here. So here's what I want to say about Boulder Builder. You can go really crazy with Boulder Builder, just like you can go crazy with tipple, the circled tangle that I was talking about earlier. In this particular situation, you want to be a little bit mindful of it because we're going to be shading quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring back in my tile here. Let's zoom out. And we are going to start with creating right down here in this corner, because I still have that really nice little area where I had my string. So I'm just going to go in right here and I'm going to give myself a little square. Once I have my little square, I'm going to go ahead and divide it in half. And then above it, I'm going to build a little bit bigger of a square right here. And I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm going to come up a little bit more and do another one. And on this one, I'm going to divide it 3 times. And then I think I'm going to come up in here and I'm going to do another big block right in here. And then on this one, I might do just a little bit of a line here. I don't want it to get too confusing. So now here's a really great way that we can just kind of give an example of how this is going to look. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to puddle. So you can see that I'm rounding my edges. Rounding my edges. I'm going to come to this one and do the same. can see that even if you have uneven lines, it doesn't matter. It's going to be so cool when it's all done. Because we've seen those crazy walls, you know, where it looks like it's almost crumbling. And I love that. I love the texture of it. So I'm just getting into those corners and just rounding off my edges. I'm going to come up in here, over here. So you can see why I don't want to go over the top with it, because I'm thinking about it in terms of how much do I have to shade. I mean, if you really want to go hog wild, you can. I think I'll leave that be right there. So you can see that I've already got the beginnings of something really fun. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my tile, and I'm going to go to the next rung here. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to do another really narrow piece. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide it in half. And then I think I'll give this a pretty good chunk right here. And then on this one, I'm going to give it a really good chunk, but I'm going to divide it. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to divide it here, and I think I'm going to divide it there. Now once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let this one have a nice big chunk as well. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to soften my edges. I'm just getting them to round off. Really take your time. Coming over in here. Just taking your time. Coming over in here. So you can see that you can be really random with it. It's really all about making it as fun and interesting for yourself as you want. Coming in over here and in over here. So you can see that we're already starting to get that neat feel, and then look at how the curls are coming back and down. I love that. So it almost looks like the wall is fake. It's like a trompe l'oeil, if you will. So it's like scrolling back. So I'm going to go over to the other side right here and just keep on going with this. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to start to do one that goes right across. And I think I'll divide this one down the center here. I'll give another big chunk. And this one, I think what I want to do is I'm going to divide it 3 times. So I'm just going to go 1 and 2. And then I'll give a fairly big chunk. And then I'm going to come to this one right here and let it drop all the way down. And this one, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little bit. I'm going to go right here and go 1, 2, and 3. And I love just being able to go and randomly see where this is going to lead. So it's almost kind of like you're just wondering what's going to happen. It's a grand experiment. And you know, these never come out the same way twice. So I love to play with them. It's almost addictive. And it's very trancy too, because you know what you're doing. You're just rounding off your edges and having a good time. It's not like this is reinventing the wheel. So I'm just rounding off my edges, and I'll come back the other way. Over here. Rounding off that edge and that edge. This is going to be so much fun when we shade it in. Love it. So we have one more spot to do, and I'm going to leave you to do this one on your own. No freaking out, just have a good time with it and play. It's so much fun to do. All right, I'll see you in a minute. So here we are, and doesn't that look so neat? I love it. It's so fun. So one of the things that I did with my first one was I added some cracks into some of my bricks. And so I'm going to create these kind of random crazy looking cracks into my bricks here. So I'm going to start, and it's going to look a little bit like a little bit of a Y like shape, and I'm not going to do it to every single one of them. I want it to have a little bit of randomness to it. So I'm going to start in right here, and let's go ahead and zoom in on that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to make kind of a shaky line, and then I'm going to let it roll up that way and roll up like that. I'll come down here, and maybe I'll do one that's going downward. And it almost looks like a Y. I might add just like a little piece in there. I'm going to come over to this big guy right in here because he looks like he could be pretty cool. And I think I might just give him so they're just kind of shaky lines, as it were. So I'm going to come over here, and maybe I'll do one. Let's do one right over here. This looks really good. And then maybe I'll come up into this corner over here and do a little shaky line. And maybe I'll come over right here and do one. This looks like a good spot. I think that's going to do it. So let's take a look at this. Let's zoom out. Ooh, I like those. I think that's going to be good. So go ahead and put in some cracks for your bricks in here for your boulder builder, just to give it a little bit of fun. And then when we come back, we're going to start to look into adding some color. Okay, so I'm going to pick up some colors here. I've got 3 different colors. I've got a gray, I've got kind of a mustard-like yellow, and I also have kind of like a pumpkin spice color here. This is almost a terracotta color or a sienna. So if you have these colors, I'm going to talk about them in a minute. If you can find colors in your palette that are close to these, that's what we're looking for. So the first color I'm going to be using is PC1065. This is my favorite gray that's in the Prisma color set. But if you don't have this gray, you could use the 50% warm, the 50% cool. They're all wonderful grays in the Prisma color set. Then the next color I'm going to be using is called Goldenrod, and this is PC1034. This is a wonderful color to have in your set. Goldenrod is one of my favorite colors. It mimics wheat or sand, all of those kind of things very, very well. And then I've been really partial to this new color lately. This is Pumpkin Orange. This is PC1032. And like I said before, if you don't have this color, you could pick up Sienna or the Ochre. Those are both really beautiful colors that you could substitute. So don't worry about having the same exact color. We're just looking for in the same range. So we're looking for kind of muted colors in this particular piece. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by adding in some goldenrod first. I always like to go with the lightest color first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by coming into some of the bigger pieces first. And I'm just going to dust in a little bit of the goldenrod throughout this entire stone. Now you can see by the way that I'm going really, really lightly here and just dusting the color through. Now once I've had an opportunity to dust some of that color through, I'm going to come back over to this edge right over in here, and I'm going to start to press a little bit harder, and you're going to see that my pencil's working in a circular like motion. And I'm just going through and adding a little bit of that medium pressure. Now once I have that, I'm going to come right over into the edge here, and you're going to see me press nice and hard. And you can see that I'm getting a really nice kind of texture throughout this. And I'm lightening up my touch as I move away from the edge. And already we're starting to get a really nice feel to this stone wall that we're working with. So I'm going to go ahead and start to, dance around the piece a little bit. I think it might be nice to have one up in here, so I'm just going to go in and start to handle it the same way I just did down below. So I'm just doing a dusting of color, leaving a little bit of white right on the edge, and then coming in and adding a little bit of pressure. So this is medium pressure here. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to give it some heavier pressure. And I love the goldenrod, because it really is a dimensional color and it really does show itself off quite well. So I think I'm going to come right down in here and start to add a little bit in here. So you can see that I'm being very random with it. And I'll do this side of the wall just so that you kind of get an idea for how to handle the rest of this on your own. So I've got that, and that looks pretty nice. So I've got a good beginning of those blocks. Now I'm going to pick up that kind of sienna-ish color. This is the more brown color, the pumpkin. And I'm going to take that color and start to bring it around to some of the other places. So I'm going to come in over here, and it's kind of got a terracotta feel to it, which I love. And I'm just going to dust it through. So same way that I handled the other. And then I'll drop down over here and start to add some in here. Giving a little bit of pressure. And then a lot of pressure right on the line there. I'm going to come down here and start to bring in some more of that terracotta. Give this a little pressure. And then a little bit more. Now I really love this terracotta, so I think I'm going to add it to this bottom piece here. And you can see that what I'm doing is I'm going to leave the light really close to where those other bricks are, so that I get a little bit of contrast off of it. And then I'm going to come towards the edge and start to give this a little push. So you can see that that's going to be really nice in here, just to give this a really nice feeling. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and I'm going to pick up some goldenrod again and just start to add that last bit of goldenrod right in here. And start to give this a little push. And then once I have that, I'm going to let go of those warm colors and I'm going to bring in that nice cool gray. And what I love about using the cool gray is that it's going to give this a toning down, as it were. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to dust in that nice cool gray. Coming in with a little bit of that pressure that we talked about earlier. And then coming in a little bit heavier. And look at the way that that gray sits with these. It really has a nice feeling to it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come in right over here and add a little bit of gray right in here. Give this a little bit of pressure. You can see that that's really nice and soft here. So we get this kind of feeling of this beautiful kind of limestone wall. And if you wanted to, you could even mix up some of your colors. Like if you wanted to add in a little bit of that pumpkin into where the goldenrod is and vice versa, you could do that. So you can see that I'm kind of coming in and dusting in a little bit of that pumpkin into where the goldenrod is. It starts to give it a really neat kind of glow. Could come in over here and just add a little bit of it. Maybe in here. And maybe over there. And then you could also pick up the goldenrod and just drop some of that in on where you kind of feel like you need it. So it's really one of those shading things where you can be a little bit more free and play. You can see that I'm continuing to play here. And I really love the way that that's starting to look. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine. The only thing I'm going to say to be mindful of is not to use too much gray, just to let the yellow and the orange be the most dominant part of the piece. Just I'm using it very sparingly. Okay, so go ahead and have some fun, and when we come back, we'll start to work inside of the piece. All right, so let's go ahead and start to bring some interest into the center of the piece here. I'm going to let go of the browns and the grays just for now, but we will be coming back to those, so keep them handy. In my hand here, I've got lilac and I've got dahlia purple, and I love the way that the lilac and the dahlia purple will play off of these kind of muted colors that we have in here. So the color lilac is PC956, and then the dahlia purple is PC1009. Now remember, if you don't have these colors, you can use violet, you could use the any other light purple that you have in your set. I believe that there's lilac, and then there's also lavender that's really pretty. So you can play with different colors. It doesn't have to be exactly like mine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a demo of how we're going to handle Harari and the petals that we have here. So you can see that my pencil is really well sharpened up. You always want to have a nice sharp pencil here. And you can see that I'm going to work on the side of that pencil to fill in the space. You can see the way I'm holding it is not traditional. It's actually I'm holding it with my index finger and my thumb. And I'm going to do little circles with that lighter purple first. And you can see that by working and rubbing the side of the pencil onto the page really is a more efficient way of filling in the space than rather working on the tip of the pencil and having to use just that small area. And it also gives me a much softer presentation of color, right? So you get this beautiful mist of purple. So look at how quickly that was done just by using the side of the pencil. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to build on this a little bit and give this a little bit of pressure. And I will just go up the sides here a little bit, not a ton. And you can see that I'm getting kind of this band of lightness right in the middle. I'm going to go to the back of that little flap that we have there and give that a little bit as well. So you can see I'm just going to roll right through the piece and just give this a little bit more. Remember, I'm still using the same pencil, I'm just applying more pressure. So whenever you're looking at a color, remember that you have 3 different colors with one pencil. You have your light, you have your medium, and you have your dark, because it's all about the amount of pressure that you're putting on that pencil. So I'm going to come in and just add a little bit of that. Now, once I've got this, I'm going to pick up my Dahlia Purple. This is the PC1009, and I'm going to come in and start to dust the outside edges where the black line is, and then down at the bottom here, I'm going to start to give this a little pop. Now, I'm not pushing hard. I'm going pretty lightly with this. And now at the bottom, I'm going to give it a little push, and look at that rich color that's coming through there. Isn't that so pretty? You know, I'm kind of thinking of like morning glories with this. I'm trying to think of, different kinds of plants that have these kind of beautiful purples in them. And dusting at the sides. I'm going to get in there and give that a little bit of a shadow here. And then you can see that I'm coming in and giving that a little bit of a push right in here, getting that richness of color. Same thing down in here. And I can already tell that I'm going to love the way that this is going to present next to that really kind of muted color in the background. I'm going to pick up my white here. So I have my Prisma PC938. This is a great blending pencil, and so I'm going to take this and I'm going to start to work in little circular motions, and I'm going to start to blur up some of that darker purple in the bottom. And you can see that I'm being really mindful not to lose the light. I need to keep the light. Whenever you're working with that white pencil, it can get dragged into some of that other color, and you lose what you were working with before. So you can see that I'm being very mindful not to lose the light. And look at how beautiful that's starting to show up. Now I'm just going to start to pull on these colors just a little bit. You can see that I'm working with little circular motions, and I'm going through the top of the petal in here, but I'm being mindful not to let it get too dark. And look at how beautiful that is, right? So when I zoom out, you can really see. Isn't that so pretty to have those colors right next to each other? It really gives it such a pop. So I'm going to go all the way around, and I'm going to do my 3 petals on each side, and then I'm going to come back in and I'll add just a little bit of detailing into those. But go ahead and do your petals, and this is really where you can get into the zen of it. You know what you're doing, and now you can just be fully immersed in shading and really bringing in that color. All right, I'll see you in a minute. Take your time and enjoy. So I love the way that this is starting to turn out. It's really got such a strong feeling to it, doesn't it? It's got a lot of brightness to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to zoom in on these petals right in here. Now you can see that my pencil has been all sharpened up here, and we're going to do some lines in here where I'm going to come in, I'm going to draw a line, and then I'm going to interrupt it and bring it all the way down. So I'll draw it down and interrupt, draw it down and interrupt. Now you'll notice that I'm not going to go into the curl of the flower here. I'm going to keep that just in the center. And what this is going to do is this is going to bring a little bit of texture into those petals. So you can see that I'm just bringing those down. Really nice and easy. So I'm going to go all the way around and do that in each one of those petals here. You go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to start to talk about tipple. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up those oranges that we were working with out in here. I've got that goldenrod, and then I've got the pumpkin orange again. Now, if you have the sienna, use the sienna, and if you don't have the same yellow, just use the yellow that you have, okay? Remember, this is all about just learning how to work with color and shades, so we want to just work with what we've got, and everything is going to look just fine if we just use similar hues, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to shade into the tipple here, and I'm going to come in and just very, very softly start with that goldenrod, and I'm going to just go halfway through the goldenrod, and then I'm going to give this a little bit of a push, a little bit of heavier pressure. And then I'm going to come in and add a little bit of that pumpkin into it. Now once I've got that pumpkin in there, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that gray, and I'm just going to dust it ever so lightly right into the corner of that tipple. Now I'm going to pick up some of that white, and you want to make sure that your white is nice and clean. You can see that I still have some purple on it, so I'm just going to get that off of there. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to blend those colors in together. Now I want to be really, really careful with that gray because I don't want to pull it too far forward, but just enough of it to keep it interesting. Now if you feel like you lose a little bit of that yellow, you can always come back in and just dust a little bit of it back in. Isn't that so pretty? It's got such a beautiful feeling to it. And look at it just by itself with that. Isn't that stunning? Just love that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that again right over here. Now you'll notice that I'm going to make my shadow actually go from the inside. So you can see I've got light on looking up towards the petal. I'm going to do that again over here because I really like the way that that looks. Remember, in the world of Zentangle, anything can happen, right? So you don't have to really abide by the laws of light here. You can really just do it however you want to do it. So you're going to see me come in and then give it a little bit of pressure. And then I'll go ahead and I'll start to add a little bit more of that darkness on the inside. And then I'll pick up that gray and start to work with that gray. And bring that right on the edge there. I'll come in and start to clean it. So you're going to see me start to blur it in, pulling some of that really nice coppery orange forward, and then I'll start to drag some of that gray forward there. Now, just like I said before, I'm going to just dust in a little bit of that yellow. And I just love the way that that looks. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do these two right down in here, but I'm going to leave this one alone. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we'll address the one that's right in the middle. Isn't that coming out so nicely? I just love the way that this is starting to feel. A little bit of the juxtaposition of something so bright with those earth tones is so beautiful, and then to have that repeat on the inside is lovely. So I want to come into the center here, and I'm actually going to do something that I don't normally do a lot, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a color that is nowhere else in the piece here. And what I'm trying to do is just really bring the eye into the center of the piece. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up two colors. Actually, I'm going to pick up three. I've got True Green in my hand, which is PC 910. I have the light aqua, which is PC 905, and then I have the cobalt turquoise, which unfortunately I cannot read you the number. As you can see, it's kind of a mess in my little thing here, but you can see that I've got a, let's go like this. I've got a light blue and a dark blue, and then I've got this kind of minty green that I'm going to be using here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with that really pretty minty green in the center here. And I'm just going to dust in almost all of the center except for this little piece of light that I'm going to leave on the side. You can see I'm leaving that right there. Then I'm going to take that lighter blue and just start to dust that in right next to the green, and you can see that I'm being very mindful to leave that green there. And then I'll come in with that cobalt blue, and you want to make sure that you're all sharpened up. And I'll dust that really pretty dark blue right on the edge. Now I'm going to pick up my pencil again, that white pencil. You can see that I'm looking to make sure that it's clean, and I'm really being careful not to lose the light here. I'm going to start to do little circles where the green is, start to dip into the blue, and then I'm going to dip into that cobalt. Look at how beautiful that is. Isn't that gorgeous? Love those colors together. So that when I zoom out, look at how cool that is. So it takes your eye and it drags your eye right into the center of the piece. I really like that. And so I think that's going to be what I do for the rest of this piece. I just love that. So go ahead and pick a color that you like, or you can do kind of the same kind of colors that I did. So remember, I used a minty green, an aquamarine green, and then kind of a cobalt color, and then I used the white. Have some fun with this. Okay, so this is one of my favorite parts of doing Zentangle, is watching a piece go from one really quiet area into just pow, giving something a really big punch. And that's kind of where we are right now. We're kind of at the crossroads here. So I'm going to ask you to pick up a thicker black pen. Now I've got a couple here that I can just show you right off the top. One, if you are new to Zentangle and you don't have any fancy pants pens, a Sharpie will always do it. So you can always use a Sharpie. You just want to make sure that you don't want to get too close to the detail pieces because Sharpies have a tendency to bleed. Now, one of my favorite pens is the Faber-Castell Pitt pen. I happen to have the brush pen that says SB on it, and what I love about this is that it acts like a brush instead of a pen, so you're able to fill in areas much more quickly. And then another pen that I really like is the Staedtler Fine Liner. This is the pigment liner, and I have an 07 in my hand, and you can see that when I pull this up that nib is nice and thick, and so that you could fill in an area fairly quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brush pen for this, and we're going to start to puddle in quite a bit of this. So let's go ahead and zoom in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to puddle in the inside of our petals here. You can see I'm really taking my time. And then I'll come up into the areas around the flower, and I'm being very mindful of the edge of my piece here. and filling in around the edge. I'm going to go in where I have my little tipples and fill those in if you haven't filled those in. And you can see that already this is starting to get very dramatic. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to do it again right over in here. You can see why I really like this brush pen. Getting in right into the edges, and then once again I'll come out around the flowers. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and when we come back we're going to start to work with the little tipple that we have inside of where the flowers are, and we're going to start to look at that really fun tangle that we started with, the scrolls in here. Okay, so go ahead and finish up what you've got, and then we'll come back and do some more work. So do you see what I mean? How that black just really made that whole thing pop right off the page. It's amazing what black can do. I just am blown away by it every time I use it. So let's go ahead and zoom in here. And we have these little tipple that are kind of dancing around where the flowers are. Now you could go about this a couple of different ways. You could take that yellow that you have and you could put those in there. You could use the gray if you wanted to use the gray, which is what I'm going to do today. But you could use a whole different amount. You could even take the blue and bring the blue in there. You know, that's kind of a good idea. I think I'm going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually switch gears, and I'm going to add some of those blues into those. I think that might be really pretty. So I'm going to pick up that green, and I'm going to pick up the dark blue that we just worked with in the center here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shade in half of the tipple. Let's go ahead and use this one. So I'm just going to go around there, and then I'm going to come in with some of that darker blue just on the edge. That is so pretty. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick up that white. Remember, if you've got a sharpened up pencil, you can do a lot more with it than if it's all worn down. So I'm going to come in, add a little bit of that white. Ooh, that is so cool. Isn't that cool? So that when we zoom out, look at how your eye bounces around a little bit, which is really kind of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that very same thing right over here. So I'm just going to go in and do a little dusting. And then I'll add a little bit of blue, just a skosh of it. And then I'll come in just like that. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we'll start to talk a little bit about these lines in here. Yep, I think I'm in love. All right, so I'm going to let go of those blues and I'm going to pick up my gray. So the 70% cool gray that I talk about quite a bit, we're going to pick that up. That is PC 1065. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some shading all the way around our Nyu here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, and you can see that I've got this line and it looks like it's overlapping this line right in here. So I'm going to add a dusting of the gray, very, very light dusting, and I'm going to let it travel about halfway up the curve and halfway down here, very, very lightly. And then I'm going to give a little bit of pressure right where the overlap is happening. I'm trying to give the idea that there's a shadow happening. I'm going to let a little bit of a shadow come down right in here. I'm not going heavy. I'm just going to give this a light dusting. And that's all I'm going to do inside of these loops. So you're going to see me turn my tile, and I'm going to do it all over again. So here I am, here's the line that's going down, it's above this one, and so we're going to dust in, and then we're going to give a shadow, dust in, really nice and light. You can see I'm leaving a little light sheen in there, and I'll dust in, turning my tile, give a nice shadow, and a little heavier, light, and then heavy, and then one more time, going light, and then going heavy, light, and then going heavy. Now I'm going to go back up and give those little shadows in here. So you're going to see me just start to dust in a little bit of a shadow right up in here. Already did that one. And now I'm going to come in here, give that a little shadow, and one more time. Nice shadow in there as well. Now you can see that I'm going to pick up my white, once again making sure that your white is clean because you don't want to drag another color in there. And I'm going to do some blurring of those grays. So I'm just going to go in and do some blurring. Just to soften it up. I'm going to turn, give a little blur. And you can see what happens when you're adding that white. Look at how this has a little bit of roughness to it, and this is a little bit more smooth and clean. Turning my tile, blurring it out. Turning the tile, blurring it out. And one more time. And look at how lovely that looks. Isn't that so pretty? It's just got a really nice deep elegance to it that we normally wouldn't get if we were just to leave it by itself, you know? And I love how a little bit of shading can really take something from being very two-dimensional into three-dimensional. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then we're going to come out and deal with our really cool curls. Okay, so let's go ahead and deal with these nice curls in the corner here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my gray. This is 1065, and I'm going to start to do just a really light dusting of color right in here and right over here. And you'll notice that I'm leaving a nice sheen that goes right down the middle. I'm going to give this a little bit more pressure right along the edge. And I'll give this a little pressure right along the edge. And then once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and right along the inside of the piece here, I'm going to give this a little bit of a shadow. And I'll give this a little bit of a shadow as well. You can see that I'm going to come back in and give that a little extra pressure. And I don't want my sheen to be too overpowering either, so I'm really being mindful. Look at how that has a really nice three-dimensional feel. I'm going to pick up some of that white, and I'm going to start to blur out the edges. Right in here. And then I'll come in here and do the same. And already you can see that that looks like a curled edge that's coming right in. Love the look of that. I'm going to add a little bit more shadow right behind the curl here. So you're going to see me come in and start to shade into the area behind. And then I'll go ahead and give this some real darkness. So it's almost like a shadow pulling away from the light. I'm going to go ahead and give this a nice push of pressure. And look at that. And now it looks like it's curling inward, doesn't it? So fun. All right, you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine on the other side. So this is coming along quite nicely. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little bit of a shadow that's going to sit on some of those boulders that we have. So I'm going to sharpen up my gray pencil here. And I want to make sure that I've got a really good fine tip on it. And I'm just going to very, very lightly start to give the illusion that there is some shadow happening here with that curl. I'm going to do the same down in here just a little bit. And then I'll flip my piece and I'll do it again. So I'm going to come in right over here and just add a little bit of a shadow. You can see that I'm going very lightly. I'm not pushing hard on that pencil. So I'm just giving the illusion that there's a little shadow going on here. You can see I'm going to turn my tile to make it work for my hand here, so that when I turn back you can see that that gives a really nice feeling to the piece. Isn't this so fun? It's amazing how just a lot of different small movements can create such an interesting composition. So I'm going to take that gray one more time and I'm going to just come into the frame that's going around the Nyu here and start to just add a little dusting of a shadow right into my corners. So you're going to see me come in and just dust a little bit. Same thing over here. And same thing over here. Over in the corner. And down into this corner right in here. Now you'll notice that I'm leaving a little bit of light in the centers there. Now I'm going to come back into the corner and give this a little bit of a press. Same thing over here. A little bit of a press, a little extra pressure there. And same thing over here. That really gives it kind of a steel kind of feeling to it. I'm going to come in and blur my edges with a little bit of that white. I'm really loving the way that's looking. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back we're going to add some white highlights to the piece. So I've gone and picked up my new favorite pen. This is the Mizu Love. I love this pen. It's just a really great white gel liner. But if you have the Sakura or if you have the Signo Uniball, those are both great pens. The Sakura Jelly Roll or the white Uniball from Signo is great. But this is my new favorite, the Mizu Love. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right into the center here and give this a little bit of a line and a couple of dots. And then I'll come over here and give this a little bit of a line and a couple of dots. Same thing in here. Same thing over there. And this piece doesn't really require too much highlighting. It's, got so much going on all by itself. I'm just going to come up into these little tipple and just add a little dust of light by adding one little dot into the darkest part. And that really is it for the highlighting, which is really minimal in this piece, so that when I zoom out, look at how fun that is. So I'm going to go ahead and put my chop in right down here at the bottom, almost like a little piece of graffiti on my wall. So there's my chop, and your chop is just your initial, and it just indicates that you are finished with your meditation for the day. Now, you know me, I'll fuss a little bit with it when I'm done, just seeing little things here and there, but for the most part, I feel like I'm ready to let go of the piece. So I hope you really enjoyed the class today. If you did, please give us a thumbs up or a nice review. Even better, you can go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube page. If you'd like to join us on Facebook, we're at the Tangled Yogi Art Community page on Facebook, and we have a wonderful community of students here that share their work, and we all learn from each other because everybody handles it differently. It's such a wonderful group to hang out with. All you have to do is answer the questions and we'll let you into the group. So that's it for me. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.